So today I want to talk about value. I think value is a topic that is important, especially in today's time, because every week it seems there's a new advancement making our work easier, and it's also cutting a lot of jobs 10, 15, 20 years down the line. Are the jobs that we have today, are they even going to exist? Essentially, your value is your currency, and the amount of currency you're able to exchange for your value is determined by how valuable you're able to make yourself. There is untapped, unmeasurable potential in each and every one of us. And a lot of the times we're not as valuable as we may think we are. There's no value in dormant potential. Like, that's an argument that I will stand on. We can have as much potential as we want to have. But if we do nothing with it, if we don't develop it, if we don't show it and display it, the value isn't going to be realized. All right, what's up? Welcome. This is Miles Jr. Welcome to the new episode of the Miles Hype Podcast. As always, the vision and goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. So today I want to talk about value. I think value is a topic that is important, especially in today's time, because of all of these technological advances that we're experiencing with OpenAI, Gemini, all of these new AI platforms that are coming on stream, and the advancement that they're experiencing in a very short period of time. Right, every day, every week, it seems there's a new advancement that is making the platforms better, making our work easier, and it's also cutting a lot of jobs. To be quite honest, and that's where the thought of this particular episode came from, because there's a lot of fear that is settling in, especially looking 10, 15, 20 years down the line, and like really thinking about, man, what are the jobs that we have today, are they even going to exist 20 years from now? And I think for me, I see a lot of what we are able or capable of doing attached to the value that we're able to create. And our value essentially is developed through our potential, right? The skill sets that we have. Value is something in life that is essential for leadership, for purpose, right? For life itself. I think the value that we can create, it allows us to create a living for ourselves. In society, value essentially determines the influence we have. It determines the opportunities that we get to take advantage of. And it also determines the wealth that we're able to accumulate, right? Essentially, your value is your currency, right? And the amount of currency you're able to exchange for your value is determined by how valuable you're able to make yourself. Value must be created, developed, and then multiplied. Right? God designed us to grow, to cultivate, and to increase the world around us. Right? And we do that through developing ourselves. First of all, realizing who we are and what we're capable of doing, and then honing in on developing those skill sets that we have. And in developing those skill sets, we start to create value for ourselves. People really don't pay for time, right? They don't pay for the time that you offer. They pay for the value that you give. And, I think Proverbs 18 and 16 says this perfectly, right? A man's gift makes room for him on this earth and brings him before great men, right? So your gifts, which is the thing that gives you true value, creates opportunities that nothing else really can create, right? So the focus that you should be putting on your gifts should be top priority, right? It should be the thing that you're doing the most, the thing that you're thinking through, right? How can I continue to develop myself, my skill sets, and the discipline that we have on a daily basis should be in bettering ourselves. As these new technologies come on stream, I think we need to have foresight to know that, man, I need to figure out how I can use these platforms, these new technologies to better myself, better my skill set, maybe adapt to where the job market that you're in right now, the industry that you're in, where that industry is going to shift, and how I can be ahead of the curve, right? A lot of times people wait for the change to happen. But those people who are most successful make changes happen, right? Or they make things happen within the environment of change. And I don't want, my encouragement is for you not to get stuck, not to feel stuck, not to get overwhelmed with, everything that's going on, that's coming on stream. I know it might seem a bit intense, right? Because it's a lot. It's a lot of things that are coming at us every day. And it's up to us to really choose what it is that we're going to focus on, what we're going to learn in and learn with, and adapt, right? Adapt to these many changes that are happening in our lives. Because most of the time, the difference between people who rise in influence and value are those who don't allow their development to stagnate, right? The ones that truly rise in value are those who are able to develop and display their value on a consistent basis, right? So, if you don't see the value or see the opportunities presenting themselves, that's because you're not making yourself as valuable as you should be making yourself, right? Doors open because of the value you carry. So if doors aren't opening for you, then your focus should be working to make yourself more valuable. And I think that's the key, man. We sometimes we complain about opportunities, right? And how they are scarce. And maybe you're not seeing the opportunities that you want to see. Like you feel like you've been working hard and really fine-tuning your skill sets, or you just graduated college and you have a degree now, or you've been in school for a few years, you've gained a few certifications, and you just aren't seeing the fruit of your labor, right? And a lot of the times it's because we're not either displaying the value that we have, or we're not as valuable as we may think we are, right? And that may take a lot of swallowing your pride, a lot of like really being honest with yourself, because we are moving in a very fast-paced world, right? And it's the type of society where, man, what have you done for me lately, right? The success that you had yesterday has already passed, right? Now, what success, what are you going to achieve today? What are you going to do for me today? So the focus should always be on continuing to recreate yourself, to increase your value in every which way you can. And a lot of the times it comes from continuing to develop yourself, right? Gain the knowledge and information that you need, right? Understanding that information, and then being able to apply it to your daily life, to the work that you do. And that's where value is created, because you're going to show yourself wise in these different areas of your life, right? So value is developed, right? Value isn't something that is just there, like is not something that we just have. Just like our skill sets, right? We are innately born with potential, right? But it's dormant potential at the time that we're born into this earth. The onus is on us to discover what that potential is and then start to develop it. And value is the same way. Once we start to understand who we are, why we exist, maybe get a sense of purpose for our lives, and really start to develop our potential, right? Develop our skill sets, find the things that we are good at or great at, and continue to work on it. And I think it's one of those things where we will continue, if we do that, we'll continue to increase our valuations. I think of Apple, right? And it's crazy how every year Apple is releasing new products, right? And I think and a lot of these companies do the same, not just Apple, right? You have Google, Samsung, all of these organizations, these companies, they release these products on a yearly basis. And it's because no one wants to be left behind, right? They want to stay ahead of the curve. They want to keep increasing their value, the value in their products, the value in their organizations, the value in their employees, and even the value in their customers, right? They want to show you that, man, if you have, or if you continue to see, or if we can continue to display the value that we can add to your life, make your work a little easier, make your job a little easier, make the things that you do on a daily basis, just make it a bit easier for you to do. You see value in that. Therefore, you want to attach yourself to that valuation, right? And it's exactly the same that we should do with our individual lives. Just continue to release a new version of ourselves every year, right? I think for me, on a yearly basis, I'm always trying to outdo what I did last year for myself. So in going into the new year, like we're about to enter into our fourth quarter this year. So this is the time where I'm about to start to plan my next year, right? I'm about to start to plan 2026. And it takes me, I don't want to wait until 2026 comes in order for me to start planning, because then I'll be behind, right? I'll be way behind. So for me, it's, I take this fourth quarter of the current year to plan the upcoming year. And it just gives me a head start on like really, honing in on what it is that I need to do, what I see coming, whether for my personal life or for my professional life, and how I can add value to myself, to create more value for me, to make myself more valuable, figure out ways I can display, this new valuations that I'm creating, and attach myself to other individuals, other organizations, other opportunities that can continue increasing that value for me. And that's kind of the mentality that we need to have, and that we should continue to have on a consistent basis, right? We're not born with value. Value isn't something that is innately in us. We're born with potential, right? So just think of it as the example I use all the time of a seed, right? A seed isn't a dry seed isn't valuable to anyone, right? It's just a seed. But the potential within that seed is where the value lies, right? So think of it as yourself. When you're born with dormant potential. Potential is in you, but there's nothing happening to it. There's nothing happening with it, right? There's value there, but it's not easily displayed or seen by others to determine exactly what that value is. And I think, like the seed, we have to put it in the right environment, right? So we put it in the soil. We put it in, we give it the nutrients that it needs. We give it the sunlight. We give it the water. And once that tree grows and starts to generate fruit, that's when the value starts to increase. You start to experience a high rate of valuation, especially if your fruit is good. And the way that your fruit becomes good and acceptable by the masses is because you're working on it in the background. You're working on it in your downtime. You're continuing to better yourself from an internal level, all right, and individually trying to develop and better yourself, create value for yourself, so that you can continue to provide that value or put that value on display to create value for yourself.
So I'm playing devil's advocate.
Here we go.
You said there's no value in a seed. Can you clarify that?
So
because farmers would tell you otherwise.
So if I were to take a seed and put it on the table, so you're saying a seed is valuable?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Because you're looking at all of what a seed is.
Sure. But if I have the seed in my hand and I place it on this table, is the seed valuable?
If you gave me a pumpkin seed, yes, it's valuable. If you gave me a sunflower seed, it's valuable.
How so?
Because I can eat them.
Okay, so what if I give you a mango seed?
I see the value in it.
You see the value, but
yes,
is it?
But that doesn't mean it's not valuable.
Is it? No, it's not valuable. Is it valuable
yes,
at the time
that
I give it to you? There's no value in the mango seed.
There is a value.
No, you're confusing value with potential. There's potential of value in the seed. The seed
but
has
there's still value because the end result is still.
But it's if I give you a piece, okay, would you agree that the monetary currency that we use in the world today is created on paper, right? The paper that we use to print that money on. If I were to give you that with no monetary notation on it,
That's so different.
it's what it's created from, though, right? It's the same.
Different.
It's not different.
Okay.
It's the exact same thing. The seed isn't valuable. The fruit that seed produces is where the value lies.
Ask a farmer that question and see.
But I'm
if
saying
he'll
the
tell you.
farmer-
No, I understand, but
the
I
farmer
still
realizes-
think saying no value in a seed is a bit. I know the.
It may be hard to
I know
to
the
accept.
principle. I know the principle.
There's no value in dormant potential at all. Like, that's an argument that I will stand on. There's no value in dormant. We can have as much potential as we want to have, but if we do nothing with it, if we don't develop it, if we don't show it and display it, the value isn't going to be realized, right? So I agree with you. A seed does have value, but that value is first in the potential of the seed. If the seed is just there doing nothing, not being planted, not being nourished, not being given the nutrients that it needs, there's value there, but it's untapped value. It's untapped potential because there's nothing happening. It's dormant at the time, right?
What about a diamond?
Okay, so how does a diamond start?
I'm saying if you find a diamond, it's in the rough. You have to, of course, polish it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have value.
Yeah, but if you do nothing with it, it's not
still
going
valuable.
No, it's
yes,
not.
it's still valuable.
If someone that doesn't.
Okay, let's even go. I could do this all day.
Someone
what about I don't want to get too much into the colonizing of it all. But what about, let's say, cocoa seeds?
Okay.
You think the continent of Africa was pillaged and plumaged because of the raw material? They didn't see the value of it? They saw the value of it.
You're confusing.
That's why
I still think
I know what you're saying about potential. I know what you're saying, but I'm saying it's still inherent value.
It's inherent potential, and potential creates the value.
Okay.
Like, I don't want you to confuse value with potential. And that's why I made a distinct statement, right? I made an exact statement. I said, we're not born with value. We're not valuable when we're born, right? We're born with potential. So we have the potential to be valuable. We have the potential to make ourselves valuable, right? We're born with these skill sets. But if we do nothing with these skills, if we don't develop ourselves, then that value will never be realized. So that's what the statement means. So I'm not saying that you're unvaluable in as an individual, as a human being. I'm saying the value lies in your potential, right? In what you're good at, what you're able to do, the skill sets that you have, but it lies in you continuing to develop those skill sets, right? So Genesis 1:28, right? It says, God commanded us to be fruitful, multiply, and subdue, right? Or add value to what it is that we have. And I love that verse. That verse is one of the foundational verses that I live by, right? Because that's where God gave us a direct command on what we were created to do and what we should do as His creation, right? You were created to dominate. We were created to continue to produce fruit, right? Or to be productive. That's what we were mandated to do by our Creator. That productivity lies in the skill sets that we possess. And if we don't develop and increase our knowledge of the skill sets that we have, then we're never going to realize our true value, right? Yes, like Cherie says, value is there. But if the potential or the skill isn't where it's recognized, right? Because my dad taught me this principle, and it's a global principle, right? But I heard it first from him, and he told me that value is determined by the market. So in other words, like, I think at the time we were trying to sell something. I think it was a house or something in our portfolio. We were trying to sell it, and we were talking to an agent and determining like what price should we set for it. And my dad had a valuation in his mind, the agent had a valuation in his mind, and they were kind of going back and forth because he couldn't tell whether the the value that the agent was saying we should place on it was legitimate enough. And his argument was, you can set a price for a service or a product, but if the market isn't willing to pay that price, then you're overvaluing your product, right? So the market determines the value. So we can think we're as valuable as we want to be, but if the market or the customers don't agree with that valuation, then it's going to prove that we're overvaluing ourselves. So in the same way, continuing to increase our value means continuing to better our skill sets, to better our potential, and not only better it, right, but put it on display to prove why we are valuable, right? And it takes me back to the parable of the talents, right, in Matthew 25. I think I talked about this on the podcast quite a few times. There's this master, he gave 3 of his servants some talents, and the 2 that increased the value of the talents that they received, right? They doubled the value of their talents. They received more. And the servant that didn't do anything with his talent, just hid it, right? He was actually stripped of his talent, and his talent was given to someone that duplicated it. So the principle there is, if you don't develop your value, right? If you don't develop your skills to increase your value, then you risk losing even what you were given. You risk losing even what you have. So the goal should always be to recognize and identify what those skill sets are, what your potential is, and add value to yourself, right? Your talent, your skill set, and your wisdom are like the talents, like in the parable of the talents, right? And the more you work on them, the more valuable you become. Again, going back to Sharice's example with, I guess her stance on we're born with value. Value is in your potential, right? There is untapped, unmeasurable potential in each and every one of us. But the reason why some of us are more successful than others is because those who are successful know how to develop and display their skill sets, which creates value for them. So if you want to become valuable, or if you want to become successful, you need to start increasing and working on your value. And again, I don't want to lose where this conversation came from, right? I'm thinking about how the society that we live in is advancing through technology on an ongoing basis, on a very consistent basis, and we don't want to be left behind. And I think for us, for me, it's important for us to continue to educate ourselves, right? Continue to focus on bettering ourselves, gaining and as much information as we can attain, really adding and applying ourselves to understanding that information, and then being able to apply that into our professional and personal lives, so that we can show ourselves wise, and then continue to create value for ourselves. So how do we create value? And I have 4 points that I want to just kind of run through and just kind of help you in the mindset that you need to have in creating value or enhancing the value that you want to create. The first is you should seek wisdom above all, right? I'm always going to go back to the life book, what I call the life book. In Proverbs 4:7, it says, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding." So clearly, it's clear that we're being commanded and mandated to, above all, get wisdom. And the way that we get wisdom is to continue to surround ourselves, engulf ourselves in information, right? Education, training, mentorship, these are practical ways that we can pursue wisdom. So, I'm going to bring this up a little later, but I want to talk to and tap in with, give some information about our Munroe Institute of Leadership. But the reason why I am encouraging us to, just try to focus on increasing and always developing our skill sets and increasing our value, is so that we don't get left behind, right? And, seeking wisdom in all aspects of our lives is obviously the most important thing, or one of the most important things that we can do. The more value you're going to create for yourself. And then lastly, you need to have faith and consistency. Luke 16, verse 10, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, right? And, consistency is key. If you're one of those individuals who you change with the tide, right? You just kind of go with what's the biggest thing out, right? Like I remember there was a point here in the Bahamas where, photography just became like a pastime job, right? Everyone wanted to be a photographer. Everyone was buying a camera and saying, man, I can take photos. And it was a ton of, new photographers that just kept popping up. But there were only a small few of that large number of individuals that are still here today. And that's because, that innate ability, that potential was truly in them, right? They weren't following a fad. They weren't following the trend at the time. They really saw potential in themselves, saw something that was happening, right, that sparked their creativity, and they leaned into it. And they didn't only lean into it, they stayed consistent throughout the years. And that consistency has created value for them today. And, I think it's a true testament to, this last principle that I'm talking about, right? Being consistent and faithful, right? Because being consistent in small things, it builds credibility and multiplies your value over time. So as we continue to increase, or as we desire to continue to increase our value, we need to apply that same desire into self-development, right? And into attaining as much information, as much education, as much training that we can give ourselves in order to continue to increase the value that we have, right? And that's where I want to introduce talk about, not really introduce, because I've talked about our institute before. But I want to talk about the Munroe Institute of Leadership, right? And we believe that true growth is more than just acquiring head knowledge, right? It's about discovering your identity, understanding who you really are, and then developing the skills that turn your potential into power, right? Your potential is your power, your skill set. That's where your power is, right? Because no one can take that from you. That's innately in you. You were born with those gifts, born with those skill sets. And as long as you continue to develop those, there's nothing that you won't be able to achieve. So at the Munroe Institute of Leadership, we don't just teach you what to do. We help you uncover who you're meant to be. We don't just fill you with head knowledge. We help you to discover your identity and your purpose. We develop your gifts and skills, and we help you learn to display and multiply the value that you have inside. So the value won't be able to be displayed until the potential is first discovered and developed. And again, going back to Sharice and I's conversation, there's value in everything on earth, of course, right? Everything has value, but that value is determined by what someone is willing to give for it. But that value also is determined by the amount of development or skills that go into developing that said item, whether it's a product or a service. So we're all valuable. We all contain value, but our value is contained inside of the potential that we have. And our potential lie within our skill sets, right? The gifts that we have, the things that we're good at, the things that we're capable of doing. So if we want to be valuable, if we want to increase our value, we need to better ourselves on a skill level, better the gifts that we have, right? So if you're the type of individual where you're creative, right, you are able to be a great photographer, be a good videographer, you play an instrument, you sing, you have an athletic talent. I think anyone with those type of skills can attest that if you don't work on your skills on a daily basis, you're not going to get better, right? It's impossible to get better at something if you're not working at it. And any successful person, I think, is going to tell you the same thing, right? So the better you make yourself, the better you develop and enhance your skill sets, the more valuable you become. The more valuable you become, the more people are going to demand that value that you bring, right? They're going to demand that skill set. And with that demand of that skill set, it brings success, personal wealth, recognition, right? It brings influence. It brings all of these opportunities that we have to not only increase the wealth for ourselves as individuals, but increase the wealth for individuals around us, right? Because we're able to hire other individuals that can display and develop their own individual skill sets as well. And it just becomes a snowball effect. So, your potential, your value is always tied to someone else's potential and value as well. So in order for us to increase our value, it helps us, or it should inspire us to do the same for others. Because as we help others to increase and develop their skill sets and increase the value that they have, it does the same for us as an effect, right? So for the Munroe Institute of Leadership, it's all about transformation, turning potential into power, right? Turning ideas into action and dreams into reality. So I want to encourage everyone listening and watching out there. If you take nothing away from this particular episode, the one thing I want you to do is to continue to develop yourself, continue to chase wisdom, chase information, chase knowledge, get all the training that you can get, become a life learner, right? Become someone that wants to continue learning at life, right? And I don't want you to just learn the things that you're good at. Learn things that you're not good at, right? Develop your skill sets and things that you may be okay with. You may have some skill or talents in, but you're not the best at. Those are the things you should be focusing on as well. Because if you better yourselves in those areas, that just adds value to what it is that you're bringing to the world, right? Because you're able to do a whole lot more on a higher level, all right? So that brings me to the milestone that I want to leave with you for today, right? And today's milestone is definitely attached to our topic for today. But I wanted to kind of challenge you, right? I've been saying since early on this year that this is the year of challenges, right? So I want to continue to challenge you as an audience, as listeners, to continue to develop and better yourselves as best you can. So your skill is your value, and your value is your power. We were designed to multiply, to increase, and to make an impact. So don't settle for what you were yesterday. Keep investing in yourself with wisdom, education, and training. I'm challenging you because the world is waiting for the value that only you can bring to it. All right, so I'm challenging you to continue to invest in your wisdom, your education, and your training. Those are the three areas that we should continue to focus on as we trek through life, right? As we continue to go down this path of purpose, because, value is there, right? Value is innately there, but the value won't be realized until we discover it, which is discovering our skill set and our gifts, and then developing that, right? And then serving that to the greater society. And that's how we put our value on display and we increase the value that we have. All right. So I hope that this episode has encouraged you. My goal is always to push you to greater heights, right? Like I always say, the purpose of this pod is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. So until next time, I want you guys to stay blessed.